What up, my tea sipping daddies? We got us another track review here on MX Sim. This is the new Foxborough RF track right here. So, this one's interesting. I know that, check out this line right here, dude. I'm gonna just bounce up off this little fucking whoop thing right here into the quad, stewable quad, like, bro. And then this line right here is pretty wild too. Being able to hit this triple from the inside is tough titties, boys. Going triple, and then double right here so you can quad this right here. You really got to stretch out that quad, boy. I don't even know how to explain that rhythm on that section right there, but anyways, so yeah, so I have heard that there's kind of been like two different track makers going on here in 2022 RF Supercross. Like there's kind of been a dude doing the West rounds, kind of been a dude doing the East rounds, kind of what I've heard, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, you know, anybody that's making a track for RF is going to be held to that RF standard and should be held to that RF track standard that, you know, you've come to expect over the last decade plus with RF tracks, right? But I will say this track does have a little bit more of the vibe of the earlier tracks this year. I don't think it's as bad as some of those earlier ones because it still feels like they put some different kind of rhythm options, bigger rhythm options for sure on this track than you had on some of those earlier ones. But this is kind of like you took like the feeling of one of those earlier tracks, but then made the jumps a little bit bigger and made the whoops a little bit bigger. It's kind of what it feels like to me on this one. So I don't know if I like this track quite as good as I liked a couple of the previous ones that I was saying were so good. Spency boy throwing 360s out here, dude. TP 720s out here, dude. Oh, man. But, so it's got more of that, like, you know, sandier, higher friction type of feel to it, but it does still have a lot of different jump rhythms, and it's crazy how, like, the jump scaling doesn't seem super big on this track, but it's the layout and the distance of the lanes and everything, and just the way everything works. It opens up the doors for a lot of different kind of line options, like even just this corner right here. I mean, being able to triple that right there from the inside is big dog status. I mean, you are not going to be able to do that on a 250. I really don't know how anybody that's any worse than like a top 10 in the RF 450 class would even be able to hit this shit on a 450, because it's such a high friction sandy traction right there that it really limits the power you can get out of this corner. But it's not just that, it's the distance of this triple right here. You know, it's not like that where you can just hit it blindly with your eyes closed, sipping on tea with your hands off the controller. You got to focus on it, you know what I'm saying? And even this rhythm right here, you kind of might be wondering why the hell I'm hitting a double like in the midways through the rhythm. I mean, it'd be too hard to jump off of this, to jump all the way to that table to go on-off, right? But when you hit this triple from the inside, see, I think this wasn't even really intended to be hit right here. I don't think tripling in from the inside was really intended. It's a lot more like this jump was built to just double. You can see how huge the double landing is right there, and then to triple out. But every once in a while, you can still hit it in a way that it wasn't necessarily intended to be hit. But if you hit this particular rhythm like this, of course, going outside, it's super easy to hit this triple. But I mean, specifically going inside, it ramps up the difficulty of it quite a bit. But like the way this rhythm works out right here, if you try to triple this right here, then what's going to happen is you'd land right down in this, and you would have to jump up the face of this to land down on that very last jump of the rhythm. This is getting into some like technical ass how to hit a rhythm section faster. It might be a smaller rhythm, but it actually makes you faster on it. You know, it's kind of getting into some that kind of vibe type shit. But these whoops are for some reason kind of tricky. I don't even know why. I literally don't even know why, because they're not super big. Maybe it's their spacing or the amount of speed you can get going through. I don't know what the deal is, but for some reason they're a little bit tricky here. But so yeah, it's kind of like, this is like a weird hybrid between some of those earlier tracks they were making this year, and then some of the bigger jump scaling, bigger quad rhythms, bigger whoop skill gap. You know, it's kind of like a hybrid between the both of those things. I personally just I don't like this much of a sandy friction feeling on a Supercross track unless it's literally Seattle. You know what I mean? I mean, this is like maximum sandiness, loaminess type feeling that I think you should have on an RF Supercross track, almost bordering on a little too much. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. This is more of that sort of feeling, like I've been telling you boys, that sort of traction tile map vibe that RF has been using on a lot of their tracks, trying to make it fit the road system of the game the past 2 or 3 years. This is a lot more similar to that sort of weird traction, sandy, high friction, versus like the 2017s that had more of a actual dirt feeling to them, more of a normal dirt traction impacty feeling to them, right? Spency boy with the 360s. So anyways, but the saving grace to this track right here is definitely the different rhythm options and the bigger jump options and all that kind of stuff. That's big time lifesaver to this track right here. There's a lot of like where you really gotta, it's like slow pace, but you gotta have a lot of acceleration and a lot of hucking and seat bouncing on the bike, and, you know, leaning on the bike to really get it to even just to pop up over this right here and jump to here. You know, that takes quite a bit of skill on the bike to even get the bike to do that right there. And kind of maneuvering over that little section to hit this triple, and then really squaring the bike up right here to get enough acceleration to triple up over this. It's a fucking stretch daddy, dude. It ain't playing around, dude. And then to hit this quad right here, I mean, you got to stay mentally focused on this track to get around it, even with the more friction, higher sandy feeling. I don't think this is like an easy track or like an amateur track, you know? That's what I mean by it's kind of like a hybrid of, you know, a lot of those earlier tracks this year were super easy feeling. This is just like kind of a similar dirt feeling, but more difficult of the obstacles and the rhythms and whoops, and a lot bigger, stewable, potentially hittable rhythms on this track. You know, and I think that makes a really big difference. Like I say, like I've told you boys through all these reviews, the thing I care about the most is that the track has that pro level skill gap difficulty. It's not as much about all that other shit, even though I have opinions on all the other shit, like I've been talking about the traction and the sandy feeling and the look of the dirt and all this other kind of stuff. But really, the biggest thing in my mind is it's got to be difficult, challenging enough to be considered a pro track. And I do feel like this track has that to it. Even though I may not necessarily be the biggest fan of the feeling of the dirt and certain things, I still feel like it has that pro-level difficulty to it if you're hitting all these big rhythms and you're really trying to hold the gas down through the whoops, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it definitely has that to it. So, either way, I didn't enjoy this track quite as much as I did as the past couple ones, past like 2 or 3 ones, but it was still okay. You know what I mean? I would still consider this track okay. It's got a couple of different quad-type rhythms, lots of different rhythm options on this track. That's the big thing about this one right here, for sure. So it's interesting to kind of see how RF is sort of going back and forth with the traction and the friction to the dirt, and I don't really know what all's going down with that, but we'll just kind of see how all this develops over the next couple rounds, and then going into outdoors, we'll just kind of keep tabs on it, you know? That's all we can really do. So either way, yeah, I don't feel like the finish line is like super small like they had on some of those earlier tracks this year. You know, the finish line's big enough where you got to be on the gas, you know what I mean? You got to be on the gas to hit some of these rhythms. So yeah, man. Either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. I'll see you boys on that next one. Later, dude.